don't fall under the Medicare categories.
What's 240?
The folks who are unable to purchase at present market value, but are just a little bit above the Medicare cutoff.
Well, depending on how you manage your personal finances, you may be unable to purchase at market value and be living rather luxuriously. How do we determine this? What's the standard?
I would take a little bit higher than the present Medicaid cutoff. I would consider the size of the family and the cost of healthcare insurance in the private market and the market where you live. That you might have found yourself in this position by reason of your own decisions is a point I do not disagree. But if as a result you are in a emergency room when you should have been in preventive and getting advice along the way, we all pay for that cost. There is, in other words, a negative externality. I don't make more of that argument than should, but it is not a zero argument.
But isn't what you're saying essentially what's in the bill, where there is a threshold about people being needed to pay, and I'm not sure if this number was the right one in the final bill, but something in the range of 8 or 9% of their income, that they're protected, that if the insurance costs more than that, they'll get the subsidy. Is that essentially what you're saying?
It is, and I was just at the very start of my answer to the question. I was saying that there are two categories that I believe should be addressed, and I was going to say how I would do it rather than through this bill. What the Democrats' bill does is to say, let's use the premise of these two categories to create a structure. What I say is, let's deal with these two categories. The structure is far greater than what's necessary for dealing with these two categories. And so, yes, I do. That is, the premise is right. What I would do, and then I'd like to speak about why I'm strongly in favor of repealing this one. But it's important to put forward what I would do rather than allow the Democrats to say that I am only opposed, which is, of course, what they will be saying. In any given market where we presently contract with Medicare providers, I would seek a bid, but it would be an interesting bid, a reverse bid. It wouldn't be, tell me how much you charge for the following services. It would be, here's how much we can pay. This is the dollar sum, and that's going to be the sum of the federal and the state grant per capita. Give me the plain vanilla package that fits that number. That is the only way to constrain healthcare costs. Otherwise, if you come to the market and say, we need these services, please don't charge us too much, but the person on the other side knows that you're compelled by law to provide those services, you will be charged too much. And when you ask for that contract, I then would do what we have in California, but have not been able to fund, called an assigned risk pool. So if you win the contract, you also are obliged to pick up this assigned risk, these people, this number for this county or this part of the county. And now tell me, what you can cover. That will work. It will work for the two populations that are the premise of the Democrats' bill. Now let me identify why I'm strongly opposed to the bill that passed. First of all, transparency. Transparency in economics and finance, as well as in the way the bill was passed. But for a moment, just on finance. The Democrats pay for their bill by all of us paying higher health insurance premiums. I have no idea how much more I'm going to have to pay. It is not a line item. It is not subject to the process, the open, transparent process. How much are we spending for agricultural subsidies? How much are we spending for Medicaid? No. It is non-transparent. Instead, it is simply, we'll make everybody get health insurance. The pools thus will be larger, the insurers thus will make more money, and they will smooth it out, and those of us who presently have insurance will pay a little bit more to cover those who don't. Opaque, not transparent. Second, individual liberty. My wife and I presently can choose the health plan that we think fits us best. By contrast, under the Democrats' plan, we have to have elements in that health care plan which we perhaps, indeed, don't choose. But if we don't, it's not an acceptable plan unless we pay a fine. Third, the other side. If we have more in that plan than we believe we should, than we believe, than the government believes we should. If we have more in that plan than the government believes we should, we pay an excise tax of 40%, the so-called Cadillac plan. These are intrusions into my and my wife's freedom. We should be allowed to choose what we think fits us best and not pay a tax or a fine depending on whether it's too low or too high. Lastly, the President set out to say he was going to try to bring down the cost of health care. This bill doesn't. We should.
You don't agree with the CBO estimate that says it will lower the deficit?
No, those are absolutely cooks, Dana. You tell the CBO, assume that we'll take $700 billion out of Medicare.